Hi, kiddos. Today we're going to learn a new story, and let's start by talking about what we have learned previously. The life cycle of a plant begins with what part of the plant? You're right, it starts with the seed. And what is another word for blossom? Flower. Yes, that's right. What do we call the special plant part that holds the seeds? Now, this is a tricky one. Think about cherries, tomatoes, apples. The fruit, yes, that's where the seeds are held. What are some of the fruits that Polly talked about? Apples, cherries, strawberries, watermelons. Okay, let's talk about some of our vocabulary words today. When we talk about vocabulary, those are words that we may not or we may be familiar with. The word eventually, that means at some time later or in the end or after a few moments, eventually we will get to it. Hero, a hero is a very brave person. Like a fireman who saved a cat stuck in a tree was a hero. Orchards. Now, many of you may have orchards at your home or have seen an orchard. It's an area of land where fruit trees are grown. The example is they were picking apples in an apple orchard. Well, let's get on with our story today. It's about a special person. A long time ago, in the rolling hills, there lived a man called Johnny Appleseed. Yep, Johnny Appleseed. He did not have a home, but instead he wandered across the country from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania to Ohio to Indiana and to Illinois. Wander means to travel from place to place without knowing exactly where you're going next. Johnny was born with the name Johnny Appleseed, but he got that name, he wasn't born that way. He got that name as he moved from one small town to the next. So listen how Johnny got his name and why he became a hero to many people. Remember, a hero is a very brave person. Johnny was born in Massachusetts, and his real name was John Chapman. When Johnny grew up, he decided to travel across the country. People could tell from Johnny's clothing that he was really poor. Poor means he didn't have much money if he had any. His clothes were shabby. And look, when we talk about shabby, that means they're just kind of torn and old and worn and maybe don't fit right. And he walked around barefoot. Yep, even in the winter. When something is shabby, it's very old and torn, and to walk around barefoot means to walk without nothing on your feet. No shoes, no socks, nothing. His hat was so threadbare that you could see his hair beneath it. Now, threadbare means that it's like the fabric is woven together, but it's so loose that you can see right through it. Sometimes you get a hole in your pants, but there's some strings across it. That means that's threadbare. Even though Johnny was usually alone and very poor, he was pretty happy and brave. He believed in the power of love. He loved all the people and all the animals he met along the way. In fact, Johnny often thought to himself that he loved all the people and all the animals in the world, even though he had never met them. That would be kind of hard to love somebody you'd never met. The people Johnny met along the way enjoyed his company. They would often invite him to share in a simple meal. Johnny would accept the invitation with a smile, and after the meal, he would take out the one possession he owned that was worth anything, his violin. Then he would play for the people who had been kind to him. Sometimes his music was happy, and sometimes it was sad. People loved to hear Johnny play. Whether the music was happy or sad, they said it soothed their soul and made them feel happier. Johnny lived most of his adult life this way. He wandered from place to place. And you might think that Johnny left no mark on the land or no great memory of his existence once he passed away. This means that you might not think Johnny was an important person and that people might forget about him. But oh no, they did remember. And after all, how could he have been when he was just poor old man who wandered from place to place? But Johnny did leave, indeed, something of himself behind, something quite extraordinary or amazing. And that something would give him the name Johnny Appleseed. You see, as he traveled across the country from town to town and from farm to farm, he collected apple seeds. The apple seeds came from the apples kind strangers gave him to eat along the way. And Johnny saved those seeds and planted them in the rich earth. He planted them here and there and everywhere. Now remember what happens when you plant seeds? That's right, they germinate and they grow. When wintertime came and the earth was frozen, he saved those seeds in his pocket. And then he would, when springtime came, he would plant the seeds as he moved from place to place. Johnny hoped that one day orchards, now remember orchards is a grove or a bunch of trees, or places where fruit trees grow, would eventually grow up from the rich soil. Eventually. That means sometime. Not right now, but later on. Johnny did this until his tired old body could plant no more. However, what Johnny hoped for came to pass. The apple seeds took root and young saplings began to grow. As the years went by, beautiful apple trees dotted the landscape. Apple orchards appeared like an oasis on the wide open prairies. An oasis is a nice and comfortable place to be. The apple trees made the land look very good and pleasant. Eventually, more and more people began to move west. Wagons full of people, hopeful people rolling across the land. Later, the railroad brought even more hopeful people. All of these people were searching for new places to make a home. And incredibly, many people chose to build their homes near apple trees and orchards that Johnny had planted. The sight of apple trees gave people hope from Johnny and a fruitful and prosperous future. Prosperous means successful. Farmhouses and then towns were built near the trees that Johnny had planted. He became a hero to all who loved the apple trees as much as Johnny did. And they began to call John Chapman Johnny Appleseed. As the years went by, people harvested the apples from the trees and that he had planted, and he stored them away for wintertime. They made pies, apple butter, and jam. Children played beneath the branches of the apple trees or sat in the cooling shade. These things happened because Johnny Appleseed had cared about all the people of the world, whether he knew them or not. That was a great story. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a true story. So, it's a biography kind of about a man named John Chapman. Where did Johnny Appleseed get apple seeds from? If you said from the people that he met, you were correct. How did John Chapman get the name Johnny Appleseed? That's an easy one. You're right, because he loved apple trees so much and he planted apple seeds everywhere he went. What is the beginning of the life cycle of the trees that Johnny Appleseed planted? You're right. The beginning of the life cycle of trees planted by Johnny Appleseed was apple seeds, because all plants begin with seeds. How did the apple seeds that Johnny planted help people? Now, this one could be a lot of answers. If you said that it helped for people who came along later on in life and they planted their homes and stuff by the apple trees, and it provided a place to eat apples and a cool place to rest, you were right. And children played in them too. So let's check for our understanding, and let's use the word eventually. Eventually. In the read aloud, you heard Johnny hope that one day orchards or places where fruit trees would grow would eventually grow up from the rich soil and feed all the people and animals he loved. So say the word eventually with me. Eventually. When something happens eventually, it doesn't happen right away. It happens after some time passes. So, what are some things that might not happen right away, but might happen eventually? Try to use the word eventually when you tell about them. You're going to be doing this later on the slide. You're going to use the word eventually in a sentence. So what's the word we've been talking about? Eventually. Yes, that is correct. Let's make some choices. Here we go. I'm going to say several sentences. If the sentence uses eventually correctly, give me a thumbs up. If it doesn't use eventually correctly, give me a thumbs down. Here we go. We got lost on the way to the museum, but we will get there eventually. Think about it. You're right. You should have your thumbs up. It snowed last week, so we eventually didn't have school. Nope, thumbs down. Eventually would not work in this sentence. I couldn't have my birthday party because I was sick, but I'll have it eventually. Yep, thumbs up. Yesterday, we received a package in the mail, eventually. If I received it yesterday, nope, thumbs down. River's mom said dinner was ready, so we should eat it eventually while it's hot. Again, let's see, eventually means later, but we should eat it while it's hot. Oh, that would definitely be a thumbs down. So, thanks for listening today. And I hope you learned something about Johnny Appleseed. And don't forget, later on our slides, we're going to be using the word eventually in a sentence. So eventually we'll get to it. Thanks for listening.